Competitiveness is a paradigm of attitude that all of us possess. It's quite a complex trait to completely understand, as it also stems from an individual's inherited and developed personality, and all of us are ever so slightly or significantly different in terms of that particular attribute. But nonetheless, it is evidently possible to cultivate one's sense of competitiveness through shifting both individual and situational perspectives towards a level that could assist us further in our creative, social, and professional pursuits. Obviously, this one is a no-brainer. If you want to effectively and sustainably compete, you're going to have to become significantly proficient in your chosen fields. The unquenchable desire for competency and excellence can massively incentivize you to take that much-needed personal initiative to start the process of cultivating the skills and knowledge necessary to add and eventually give or present your value in a practically beneficial way. As much as competition revolves around you and your comparative counterparts, what's most important of all and what you should be paying more attention and effort to is your ability to master or control your own level of performance. And achieving the state of mastery will give you that sense of confidence and control. Basically, that self-reassuring sense of total authority over an endeavor, and you're going to need that sensation when you're competing because that particular feeling is what's going to combat the fear and anxiety stemming from the pressure. The world will only rewards and appreciates the valuable. If you're not able to give enough value or more value than your competitors, you will eventually become irrelevant and disregarded. That is why it is crucial for you to keep on evolving to a higher level, however possible, whether it is personally, socially, creatively, or professionally. Another thing that contributes massively towards competitiveness is your desire for exceptionality. This is what those lone wolves and sigma males secretly always dream of, being better than those involved in the hierarchy by making themselves appear or be perceived as unique in many ways, while thinking that they have removed themselves entirely from the competition. The truth is, they are still competing indirectly whether they realize it or not, and that is perfectly okay because that is exactly the attitude that they need to help them effectively perform and compete. You're not trying to be different than the herd, you're trying to be better than the herd by being different. Do not be timid or afraid to become better than other people. It is not something you should ever feel overly sorry for. It's just the nature of the game. That is why being able to wholeheartedly adopt, understand, and accept the ruthless, unforgiving, unsympathetic nature and demands of competition is crucial if you don't want to get overwhelmingly shell-shocked by the intensity should it eventually find its way to you. The world of competition is all about keeping up and staying ahead. As I've said recently, being able to keep evolving. That means knowing and accepting that other people in your creative and/or professional space also want what you are after, and that they are willing to do what's necessary to take everything from you without remorse, and vice versa. This is why people who are extroverted and have more experience with dealing with people are proven to have a much better chance in handling or sustaining competition than those who are introverted that tend to avoid social interactions. This one is quite debatable. Although extreme levels of borderline neuroticism within an individual would kill any sense of competitiveness, it is evidential that negative emotions have a positive though relatively small correlation towards competitiveness and vice versa. We all are familiar on how the utilization of emotions could either make you or break you further, and it is no different when it comes to competitiveness, especially when it comes to the specific emotion of envy. No matter how small or insignificant the contest might be, if you ever had that slight bitter whiff of spite in your senses when you lose or made inferior to within a certain endeavor, that is you being envious. It is completely and innately natural to become envious of someone who is seemingly superior than you, especially in the endeavors you are putting tremendous amounts of effort into. Evolutionary speaking, it's the natural response to resource scarcity and threat against reproductive selection. You could either utilize that sense of envy benignly and redirect it towards individual development, or you could utilize that sense of envy maliciously, turn it into hate, and try to level those superior individuals down, like pretty much everyone on the internet right now. Whether it turns out to be a healthy or unhealthy competition, it all depends on how personal one wants to treat the competition narratively and how fragile and far inferior one's sense of self-worth is. But regardless, negative emotions are useful indications and source of drive for one's sense of competitiveness. We are the sum of those people whom we chose to conform to and spend our time with. Again, our environments play an important role in shaping our identity, as it will be utterly beneficial and wonderful for us if our environments entirely supports and escalates the constructive attitude that we are trying to build. Hanging around competitive people will inspiringly compel you to elevate yourself to a certain significant standard of behavior and allow you to cultivate the tolerance needed against the pressure of competition itself. Though it can be argued that being within an extremely competitive social circle or being around competitive people that strongly refuse to acknowledge their own weaknesses while ridiculing others could result in an overall decrease in performance of the group, as it neglects both the objective element and the empathetic element to properly cultivate and nurture one another when they are needed most. But regardless, in general, being around people with competitive tendencies will help stimulate those desires for mastery and supremacy. It is important to understand, first of all, that human beings are naturally hierarchical. That is evidential since the tribal times, within every business organization and even our own individual social circles. And it has never been more evidential in the age of social media today. There will always be individuals that are identified or at the very least innately perceived as lower status or higher status than the others. The lone wolves are those individuals who are not accepted or who chose not to be accepted within the hierarchy due to critical, intrinsic and extrinsic differences. Now, the common misconception is that lone wolves deliberately remove themselves from the competition by going solo, and at first glance it may seem that way. But in truth, you cannot run away from the game, and you cannot run away from the assessment or evaluation of the game. Those lone wolves who found success by seemingly exiting the competition did not achieve that purely because they stand strong in their own lanes, but it's because they are winning the competitive game inadvertently and neglectfully by focusing on what matters most, which is performing to the best of their abilities better than their competitors. They are still competing effectively, it's just that they don't realize or chose not to become conscious of its existing occurrences, and some people prefer to be isolated within this point of view because it does not mentally clutter their focus. And it's every man's own individual choice to do so. But understand once again, when it comes to performance, no matter how valuable you think you are on your own, at the end of the day, the collective judgments of the market will determine the extent of your value. And the higher the value you are able to add or give than the others, the more rewards you will receive than the others. So your level of performance and success is still being measured against those comparative counterparts whom you've seemingly removed yourself from. A lonesome accountant's performance in a company is still being constantly assessed against those other accountants who want to match him, replace him, and surpass him, regardless if he thinks he's the only man who is capable and available for that particular profession. Competing purely against yourself is an eventual ticket to limiting your own potential and opportunities, because you are deliberately refusing to accept any frame of reference that is outside of your own limited depth of judgments, while also protecting your own fragile ego from being shattered by new information or perspective that could momentarily diminish your sense of self-worth when you make comparisons. But of course, again, every man is to himself. If he is truly content within these limitations, then there is nothing wrong with that. But just know that you can become someone more if you do decide to utilize the nature of competition effectively. Thank you for watching.